And good evening and welcome to another edition of Sports Corner with myself and Smokin Jim Frazier, who we're waiting to join us shortly here. I haven't heard from him yet, so he should be joining us by phone any moment. But right now, coming up, I have Tad MAUREY, who is the color guy for Duquesne football and Duquesne basketball, along with play-by-play guy Alex Panarmius. So let's get Tad bring him out of the waiting room. Tad, welcome to the program. It's good to have you here tonight.
Hey, Ralph, thanks for having me. It's been a couple months.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Tell us what what happened with Duquesne football this year. It seems like they dropped the ball more or less. What do you think was the main cause of the season, the way they had it?
Well, Ralph, I got to be honest with you. I mean, you hate to use the old coach cliche, but injuries really hit this team hard from the Florida State game on, and it just spiraled from there. They lost their all preseason NEC nose tackle in the first game against Florida State, and he's hardly played the rest of the season. It was an eye injury, and it's really affected their run defense, which they've struggled with all year long. Quarterback play hasn't been up to snuff like it normally is at Duquesne. They usually have a great quarterback, and this year they have talented quarterbacks. It's just they're making some mental mistakes that have cost them in some games. I'm not blaming the quarterbacks, but that's been some of the issues. So they just, once some bad things started happening and then it unraveled. But I got to be honest with you, Ralph, Duquesne football, this is only their fourth losing season in the last 31 years, which is astounding to me. So it's
wow.
Certainly,
yeah, that is great.
It's certainly uncommon for them to have a losing record. I mean, they had so many successful years in the MAC before they joined the NEC, and then they've joined the NEC and they've won the NEC 5 times since they joined it. So they usually have success. The past probably 10 years in the NEC, they've either been the preseason number 1 or number 2 team. This year they were preseason number 2, and it just didn't pan out for them. St. Francis is playing Merrimack this Saturday for the conference title, but being that Merrimack's in transition and can't represent the NEC, they're in transition from Division II. They can't represent the NEC. St. Francis is already qualified to be the NEC representative in the FCS playoffs in 2 weeks.
Oh, great. Well, yeah. The one thing I want to say, Jerry Schmidt guys, his not being able to move the football has been sort of a dentist plans more or less for Duquesne. Is that correct?
All right, say that one more time. I didn't catch that, Ralph.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was saying Jerry Schmidt's a big offensive guru kind of guy. He has to be kind of disappointed in the way his offense has played this year. Is that correct?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. They usually run, they play out of the shotgun. They usually run an 11 set with 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 running back. And usually they have great balance. They usually lead the conference in passing. They usually have a great running back, which they do again this year. They still lead the conference in passing. They just haven't been able to run the ball consistently, and they've been one dimensional too many times in too many football games. And being that with the struggles they've had on defense has led to the struggles they've had all year and their 3-7 record.
What do you think Duquesne's going to look like next year? What's it look like? They have some recruits coming in a nice class. What are we in at?
Well, yeah, they have a nice class coming in, and Coach Schmidt and his staff always do a nice job recruiting transfers. They have 12 transfers on this team as it's assembled right now, but they always do a nice job with transfers. So I expect this to be an abnormal year for them, and I expect them to be right up there at the top of the NEC, if not first, fighting for a conference championship again next year, which they seem to do just about every other year almost.
What's the schedule look like next year, Tad, for them? Do they have some tough games like the Florida State kind of thing?
Well, next year, yeah, Ralph. Next year, they non-conference. They play Coastal Carolina and WVU. So they'll be going down to Morgantown. I believe that if it's not the first game of the year, it's the second game. But yeah, they'll be heading down to Morgantown to play WVU, and Coastal Carolina was a game that they had scheduled during the COVID year, so that was canceled. So it was rescheduled for this year. Air Force was another team that they had during the COVID year. That's been rescheduled for, I believe, 2026. But yeah, West Virginia and Coastal Carolina on the non-conference schedule next year.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina actually has a really good team. They were been in the last few years. A good coach there, and we know what WVU's all about. Neil Brown's walked eggshells this year, and they've already their athletic director has already resigned. And the season's not even over yet, and there's rumors going around West Virginia game, and they were telling me about the situation with Neil Brown. They said he was walking eggshells. Some of the people I was sitting with had told me that there were some West Virginia people. I mean, you might not even next year, Mountaineers.
Yeah, I fully expect. I mean, you hate to see any coach get fired, but I fully expect to see a new regime at West Virginia next year when Duquesne plays down there. And you talked about Coastal Carolina. They've had a lot of success. They were in the top 25 at some point this year. So they're a quality program as well. So, I ask Coach Schmidt this every year, and why schedule such a tough non-conference? And that's what they like. They want their kids, their student athletes to have those kind of experiences. The Florida State game was a great experience, but I mean, they also plan these games with the expectations that they can go in and win these football games. So, but West Virginia and Coastal Carolina, another great non-conference slate for the Dukes next year.
Where you're watching Sports Corner. I'm Ralph Williams and Smokin Jim. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ralph. I heard you guys mention Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
The Ravens tight end out of there likely. He's a freaky athlete, 6'6", got nice size, super athletic. That's a passing team. So that should be West Virginia next year.
No. Coastal Carolina, Smokin Jim. We're talking with Tad Maury from Duquesne. He's the color analyst for Duquesne football. We're talking about next year's schedule for Duquesne, and they're playing Coastal Carolina.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
Yeah, Duquesne's playing Coastal Carolina and West Virginia. Tad, this is Smokin Jim Frazier, my co-host. Last time you were on the show, he wasn't on the show. He's my co-host. And say hello, Smokin Jim.
Hey, congratulations to Duquesne. What a schedule this year. Florida State and Hawaii. That's awesome. That's going to do great things for the program.
Yeah, Smokin Jim, I had some nice frequent flyer miles this year, no doubt about it. Some enjoyable trips for sure. Not some enjoyable outcomes, but the trips were certainly nice.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I saw you and Alex on Facebook enjoying some of that drinks down there, the beverages down there. Anyway, Tad, tell me about the basketball. You spoke off the air here a little bit earlier, getting ready for the show. What's the basketball team look like this year?
I'll tell you what, Ralph and Smokin Jim, this team, as we all know, they only won one conference game in the Atlantic 10 last year, but I really like what I've seen with them in the first three games. Coach Dambrot did a nice job. He brought in, he has a whole new lineup. There's only two players that play meaningful minutes this year that were on the team last year. So, and he goes 12 deep this year. I love the depth that he has. This is depth that he's never had before. He's never had competition at different positions. And I mean, to me, this has the potential to be the best Duquesne team in the last 5, maybe 10 years. And they're off to a 2-1 start. They had a tough time in Rupp Arena against Kentucky, but most teams will. But they held their own. But I really like the depth. I do like the depth of this team, and it's allowing Coach Dambrot to do a lot of things that he hasn't been able to do in the past. He's pressing a lot more, and he's going 12 deep on his bench. In fact, last night they had a game against South Carolina State, and 12 players scored in that game. And they play a lot of minutes. Everybody plays a good share of minutes. So the depth that he has is allowing him to do things for the first time since he's been here, quite honestly.
So basically, Ted, what you're telling me is he has the team he wants now, because I know he got rid of some players a few years back after in a whole new team, because he said that he didn't like the players that were there, and I heard he was kind of, particular about what he wanted. Of course, all coaches are, but I mean, there were some players not working to his standards, and so he just went ahead and replaced everybody. I'm thinking this year it looks like he has the team he wants. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say so, Ralph. And another thing, in years past, he's maybe had the culture he wanted, but didn't have the talent he wanted, or he had the talent he wanted, but the culture with that talent wasn't what he wanted. I think he has that perfect combination this year, and you can really tell these guys get along. I traveled with them to Kentucky. They get along off the court. They're very polite kids, and they've really gelled as a unit. And it's only the third game of the season, so I really look forward to seeing what this team can do this year. They have a lot of non-conference games at home this year, but they have quality opponents. They're playing the likes of Winthrop. They're playing UC Santa Barbara, two teams that are, and they play Colgate on Friday. They play in New Mexico State, or some of the teams that they play, that are all teams that are picked to win their conferences and that have been in the NCAA tournament in the last few years. So, yeah, they're playing a lot of their non-conference games at home. They only have one road game, which was Kentucky, and one neutral site game, which is this Friday against Colgate. The rest of their non-conference games are at home, but they have some quality opponents coming in. And I think we're going to get a look at what this Duquesne team can do in the non-conference schedule. But I'm really excited about this Duquesne team. And we haven't been able to say that, quite honestly, Ralph and Smokin, Jim, in quite a few years.
Oh yeah, it's been a while. Wasn't a bad coach. I thought he was a pretty reasonable coach. I personally met him doing security at the old Palumbo Center at one time. I thought, and there's been a few over the years, but Danny was a real disappointment. I actually thought he was where they needed. He big, and it was. They've had some rough sledding over the years. To see Keith Dambrot bringing this team.
I'll tell you what, Ralph, and you mentioned some previous coaches. Ron Everhart, who was probably the most successful Duquesne coach in the last 20 years. He was actually at the game last night, in fact, against South Carolina State. He's still an assistant coach under Bob Huggins at WVU.
Oh yeah, I think he's still there. I wasn't sure. Smokin, Jim, you have any questions for Tad?
No, I'm enjoying the conversation.
That's cool. Tad, what's the Atlantic 10 look like this year? The other teams in the Atlantic 10, do they look kind of? I mean, I know Smith's still there, and Dayton's always tough.
Well, Dayton's actually ranked 24th in the country right now in the preseason poll, and they've played a couple games and looked the part so far this year. Remember, this is the first year Loyola of Chicago, who made the Final Four 2 years ago. Loyola of Chicago has come over to the Atlantic 10 too, so they're really deep. And they're not top heavy.
Oh my!
I mean,
wow.
You got Richmond, VCU, Dayton, Loyola of Chicago, and the list goes from there. St. Louis is supposed to be very good this year. Duquesne was actually picked to finish 13th out of 15th, but I'd be shocked if they finish that low. I actually think Duquesne's going to have a good year for them and start the climb. And I think they'll finish mid-pack maybe in the Atlantic 10. But to answer your question, yeah, the Atlantic 10 is kind of loaded this year. And people forget about Loyola Chicago coming over. Sister Jean, everybody knows Sister Jean. But, yeah, they made the Final Four, and that's a quality addition to the Atlantic 10.
Oh yeah, it is. And no, I didn't know that. But Dayton always been tough. Richmond has been always on a venture, and the rest of it's just been, really good. Do you guys play Robert Morris this year?
No, we don't. We don't play Robert Morris, and we haven't played Pitt.
Okay, don't look like
we haven't played Pitt in the city game for like 3 years now.
Yeah, Capel made a derogatory comment. We don't have time for Duquesne, so that's. But look where his team is. So
right.
But anyway, thanks for being on the show tonight. I appreciate it for being here. And Smokin' Jim, you have anything you want to add?
No, it was a great conversation. Good meeting you, buddy.
Okay. Right. Smokin' Jim, it's my
Tad,
pleasure.
Thanks for being with us, and say hi to Alex for me, and have a great one.
All right.
What's that?
Smokin' Jim, nice to meet you. Anybody with a nickname Smokin's a good man, I tell you what. And Ralph, as always, thank you for having me on the show.
Anytime, say hi to Alex for me, will you? All right, that was who is the color analyst for Duquesne football and basketball. It was a pleasure having him on to bring us some insight as to what's going on with Duquesne sports. Smokin' Jim, it's great to have you tonight, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it, man. Everything's going well. Sorry I got on late. We did a TikTok after the show, and that took a little while to get everything coordinated.
Yeah, I heard Nick saying something about that, and I didn't know if it was actually going to happen or not, because I know you dash out to get on the show here. So, but anyway, I don't know if you saw the Facebook thing I put up. Nick was talking about he had a source that told him the Steelers were going to take Kenny Pickett. And I came on and I said, "Who's your source?"
Did you?
Yeah, I did on Facebook. I said, "Who's your source?" Nick, who's your source?
That's good stuff.
Oh, man.
That's good stuff.
Hey, you know what, man? You want to play games with me? You want to stiff me around like that, man? I'm going to get you back. Every time. Every time.
I know that's right.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, let's get started here. Steelers won, as you know, 20-10. And I almost guessed this game, Smokin' Jim. It was hilarious because I said 20-13 on the Steel City Sports World on your pre-snap show on Sunday. And it was close, 20-10 they won. And it was great to see Kenny Pickett come alive and do some things. And you know what? You pointed out on Steel City Sports or Pittsburgh Sports Line tonight that about that block that he threw, and I saw that myself. And I got to tell you what, Kenny Pickett is one tough hombre. And Claudio said it many times. He has, Claudio Rosano said he's a gunslinger and all that. He just doesn't have the arm, and he don't. But you know what, though? It looks like we have a guy here who can play the game, but he may have to get his long ball maybe going a little bit or get his arm stronger or whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, I think he can be a gunslinger as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I tell you what, he took a step in my book. I never said that I was down on him. I just always said that they played him too early, and I wasn't sure if he could be a franchise quarterback. That's something he has to prove. But he took another step, man. It's the little things that's important to me. When you're a quarterback and you hustle down there and you sacrifice your body, first of all, I don't know how he got in front of Najee Harris was moving. So to get in front of Najee, Kenny had some wheels, man.
Oh, yeah.
It almost reminded me of something Beard Bryant said one time. Joe Namath is playing for Alabama, and he throws the interception to the 100-meter dash guy of the SEC.
Oh,
and
man.
Joe Namath ran him down at the 2-yard line. and, and somebody asked Joe Davis, how'd you run that guy down? He said, if I didn't, I'd be sitting on the bench. He's just throwing that interception. So, yeah, Kenny Pickett to get out in front of Najee Harris like that, and then throw a block, man. He scored some points in my book, and Najee would have scored, but Deontay Johnson refused to block anybody. The guy that Johnson was supposed to block made the doggone tackle.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say that they play Cincy this week at home. What's your thoughts on this game? I think they can beat Cincinnati. I really do. And my score is going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be another maybe 20-10, 20-7 kind of thing. I think our defense will shut Joe Burrow down. I'm not, they have some injuries at wide receiver. Their offensive line still stinks. I don't see them doing too much. What do you think?
I think Joe Mixon's going to run wild. I just think that Cincinnati right now, in my opinion, is on another level. They're very experienced. They played together last year all the way through the Super Bowl. And it's payback time. It's revenge, man. Revenge is best served cold, and it'll probably be snowing out there. So Cincinnati's going to look to do some damage to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh upset the apple cart in the first game of the season. No way they were supposed to win that game, and Cincinnati's going to get their revenge come Sunday.
I tell you what, something that might be very interesting this year is last year the Steelers won twice against Cleveland, twice against the Ravens, but lost twice against the Bengals. Now, if they lose this game against the Bengals, but still beat the Ravens twice and beat the Browns twice, they actually win the division, believe it or not, because of based on that situation. So that could happen as well. There's a lot of scenarios here based on where they are with their record right now. And
Pittsburgh already played Cleveland, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. They lost to Cleveland. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So they would have to. Yeah, exactly. You're right. So they're not going to be able to sweep Cleveland this year, but they could sweep Cincinnati. And we'll see what happens. Anything can happen, as they say. I'm not real happy with this offensive line of ours with Dan Moore and Dotson. Dotson was playing hurt, shouldn't even have played to begin with. He has a hip injury, and he was out there playing. He gave up a couple sacks. Dan Moore keeps giving up sacks every game. We have these two guys we signed in free agency, Trent Scott and Jesse Davis. We gave up draft picks for Jesse Davis. Them two have sat on the bench the entire time, haven't even played. You got Hassenauer still sitting there. Kuntz had some kind of an injury, rib injury or something, and he was in there. And that one kick that Wright missed was a bad snap. So, if you have injuries like that, why don't you put some of these quality backups that you have? Jesse Davis is not a bad offensive lineman. I mean, I've seen him play for Minnesota. He's not bad at all. And Trent Scott played down in Carolina with Pat Meyer, the offensive line coach. And we know what we got with J.C. Hassenauer. So I just don't get why them two are still playing this game. I just don't get it. What's your thoughts?
The left side of the line is horrible. The right side of the line looks pretty good. In the center, Cole's been playing pretty well. And but like you said, it's inexcusable to allow the left side of your line to play that poorly this long without trying another combination, because they're going to get somebody killed, particularly the quarterback. I tell you what, the one hit that Kenny Pickett took in the back, he never even seen it coming. Right. I'm surprised he held on to the football. I thought they were going to split him in half.
Yeah, that's because that was the one Dan Moore gave up, and then Dotson gave up another one, and then Okorafor gave up one too. I saw him give up not blocked the right way or whatever he was doing. And, it's been a situation with the line. They're still, I guess, what they call growing, but at least Najee Harris was able to run around a little bit and get some yardage with the running game. They were able to kill the clock, which I thought was the best part of it. The time management wasn't bad for this game. But I did say this. New Orleans is not a good team. They have a poor coach. Dennis Allen is not a good head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator, but not a good head coach. He was a head coach at the Raiders. They did nothing when he was there as their head coach. So what I'm saying is, I don't see New Orleans doing any better. And I keep hearing stories about Sean Payton wants to come back, but I don't know if he'll coach for New Orleans again. New Orleans should have went out and got themselves somebody else instead of just bumping him up, because he's not a good head coach. I don't think he's going to be. What do you think?
Well, I think Peyton wants to, former New Orleans coach. I think he wants that Dallas job. And like you said, Dennis Allen was horrible for the Raiders. I'm shocked that he even got another opportunity to coach. New Orleans always had a good running game. They can't even get that going, anymore. The injuries is hit them real heavy, and I agree with you, man. There's no way Dennis Allen should be a head coach in the National Football League.
Yeah, and let's get off the Steelers a little bit. Let's talk about Josh McDaniel. They were the media was all over the owner, Al Davis's son. I'm not sure of his first name, but I know it's Al Davis's son. Was all over him because, like, are you going to fire this guy, or what are you going to do? He said he's not firing him yet. He's not firing Josh McDaniel. But Josh McDaniel's another one. He was at Denver, did nothing when he was there. He didn't coach. He's not a good head coach. He's a good offensive coordinator because he was working with Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick brings the best out of everybody. So, I mean, that's why Josh McDaniel's as good as he is. I don't think he could be an offensive coordinator somewhere else and be no good. And he had Tom Brady all these years too.
Yeah, I thought he did okay at Denver. Boy, is he laying an egg now with the Raiders. I mean, they got talent up and down that roster, and then you got a veteran quarterback, and you still can't win football games, man. That's a reflection of your head coach, and I agree with you there.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's get back to the Steelers a little bit here. Despite the injuries, the defense I thought played well. They were making fun of Robert Spillane again, but Spillane, he had a pretty good game. He had some tackles, and then your buddy Devin Bush there, he had a couple, and that was about as much. That's about his average, is a couple tackles. I don't think he could tackle a slow turtle if it was turtling across the field. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, yeah. So we're not going to go there tonight about that. That's another conversation for another time. But I will say participation will be our guide. Because every press conference, Mike King Tomlin goes, participation will be our guide. And you know what's funny about this, Smokin' Jim? The media continues to ask him, well, what's going on with Minka? He said participation will be our guide. Now, why would you sit there and continue to let him repeat the same thing? Because he's going to repeat the same thing over and over again. You know what? You know what, Smokin' Jim? I'm glad I don't go to those press conferences, because I'll tell you what, if I go down there, I ask a tough question. I don't go down there to ask dumb stuff like they do. Oh, my gosh. Oh, it's terrible. I mean, and then they, like he said, oh, well, Kevin Dotson has a hip injury. And then what do you think happened? What's the story with the hip injury? He said participation will be our guide. And then he just keeps saying it. And I just don't get it. Oh, by the way, today, he had a nice shirt on today, believe it or not. He didn't have a Steelers shirt on, and he didn't have his whistle with him.
Wow.
He always has his whistle with a Steelers shirt on today. He had some real nice looking, what was it, a sweater or something on, and he didn't wear a Steeler hat today. We actually got to see his bald head, so. Wow. So
that's something different.
Yeah. Maybe he had a meeting with Mr. Rooney and he didn't want to be there. Special teams. this right guy for kicker. I think they should have kept Nick Skiba, but according to what Tomlin said today, they're going to keep this right. They said there was some issues, and again, I pointed them out. Kuntz had a bad snap on that one kick he missed, and then the other one was some other issue. I don't know, maybe the hold or somebody didn't block right or something. And I saw the one kick that he missed. It looked like it was almost blocked. So somebody, in their blocking assignment didn't do their job either. So what I'm saying is those kicks really were not Wright's fault at all. So I don't think we can really blame him for that. As he had mentioned, and he said they will clean that up this week. So we'll see what goes on there anyway. But do you have any thoughts? Any more thoughts about the Steelers before we move on?
Well, I tell you what, man, I like the unselfishness that I've been seeing. You got the running backs alternating a little bit in there with the carries. It's just going to make you better, man. If you don't care, you can win in this league if you don't care about who gets the credit. When you do the little things, not for recognition, but the little things that you need to do to win football games, and I'm starting to see that. I wish they have one more big play weapon at wide receiver. I think it's going to hurt them in the long run, losing Chase Claypool with that size and that ability to give you a young quarterback another weapon. But long as Freiermuth is healthy, that's a special guy. That one-handed catch over the middle when he knew he was going to get nailed, still pulls it in, man. That's big-time stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing with a much easier schedule coming up in the next several games other than Cincinnati. I'm interested to see the Pittsburgh Steelers putting it all together.
Later on, we're going to talk about the 600-pound gorilla in the room, the Bill Cowher comments. We'll talk about that later. I have some comments about that as well. I don't know if you watched The Way I See It show last night. I was pretty adamant with a certain media individual in this town who has the nerve to say that stuff goes on in broadcasting. I understand. Okay, well, you understand that, but here you've stolen jobs from people, and I know this for a fact. That the person who said this has stolen jobs from other people. So why are you sitting there talking about that the same thing that goes on in coaching goes on in media in this town when you're the one who steals jobs from other people? So that's like I said, check out The Way I See It show last night, and you'll know who it is. Okay, because I came out about it. You know me, Smokin' Jim. I don't pull no punches, and I tell it like it is and say it the way I feel, and that's the way it goes. So the Dolphins beat the Browns in the other AFC North game. The Browns, they looked horrible in this game. Miami ate them up. What do you think? By the way, in Cleveland again, they're looking for that Woods, their defensive coordinator Woods, to be fired. What do you think?
Well, I tell you what, man. More and more Miami stays healthy and plays together, man. They're putting a package together that's unbelievable, man. That team is very impressive. I like their offensive scheme. I like their new coach. They're believing, man. If they continue to improve, they're gonna be a hard out in the playoffs, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the Penguins here. They're down 4-2 right now, 13 minutes into the third period. They're playing Toronto. Matt Murray is at goal for Toronto, our former goalie. And also, what's your thoughts on the Pens? I think that, like I've said many times, they put the band back together, but they didn't fix some of the lower lines. But Mike Sullivan has managed to put a small winning streak together, try to catch up from that 7-game losing streak. You think they can do it, or do you think it's going to be an up and down kind of affair this year?
Well, no matter what they do, I'm the only one, the first and only, that said that there's a curse on the organization when they backstabbed Marc-Andre Fleury. I said they will never win another Stanley Cup because of what they did to Fleury. The curse is on, and I've been right. They haven't done anything in the playoffs. They haven't even challenged for a Stanley Cup, and now this year, they look old. The Tang.
I said it.
The Tang, yeah.
I said it. I
It.
said you could put the guys back together, but my question is, you got too many of these older guys. I mean, I like Jeff Carter, but Jeff Carter doesn't help the team when Jeff Carter, who's 38 years old, is hurt and not playing, and stuff like that. And then you have to question Malkin's health. Crosby's getting old. Letang, he's been an injury case the last 3 or 4 years. And then I hear everybody go, well, we really need Letang. We really need Letang. Well, you know something? When the playoffs came around, Smokin' Jim, where was Letang? He was nowhere to be found. It was like a ghost. So what I'm saying is, it's nice that these guys can do this in the regular season. We need these guys healthy. We need these guys to be able to score goals and play. And we need these guys to be able to perform towards the end of the season and try to get into the playoffs. Mike Sullivan's looking bad right now because he hasn't had a winning season as far as like a Stanley Cup type of season. They even in a row in the first round of the playoffs. You just can't do it like that. It doesn't work that way. And with this new Fenway group in here, I'm telling you, I don't care where Mike Sullivan's from. Like Matt Venzel said last week, well, he's from Boston. They like him. I said, I'm glad they like him, but you know what? Everybody's on probation this year. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen to Mike Sullivan? They might bring another coach in here. We don't know that. And, by the way, D. Smith is in at goal. And I said the other day or yesterday on a podcast with Tim Benz that I thought Casey D. Smith is a bum. And so is Kasperi and Kaprizin, too. In fact, he's been a healthy scratch just about every game. So, I mean,
wow.
He hasn't really played. What are your thoughts on I mean, Kasperson, they wasted a first-round pick on him, and he hasn't done anything. And, so they signed him to a discount contract this year. I thought they were going to get rid of him or try to trade him and get something for him and free up some cap money and go out and get somebody else. They didn't. And, we're going to find out what they do here. But what's your thoughts on the rest of the season for the Pens?
Well, let me ask you this. I'm curious to know, do you believe in curses?
Yeah, I do. You know why? Because take a look at Pitt football. When was when they jerked around Jackie Sherrill and they let him walk away?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though I was younger then when that happened, because that happened back in the early 80s. I was still in high school, okay?
Yeah.
And I was a big Pitt fan. I've been a Pitt fan. My grandfather took me to games since I was 5 years old, okay? And, my grandfather, my mother, and my grandma, we all used to go to the Pitt games. We didn't miss a one. We'd walk Cardiac Hill and everything, okay? But anyhow, I said it when Sherrill was gone. I said when he left, Dan Marino's never going to be the same, and he wasn't. His senior year was horrible, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yep. They even lost to Temple that year at home, okay?
Yeah.
Frazier was a terrible head coach, a great defensive coordinator, great defensive mind, special teams coach in the NFL. Unfortunately for me, I had the privilege, more or less, I wouldn't say it's a privilege, to deliver the flowers to his house when he died. I happen to be a friend of a Pitt alum who has a flower shop, and I was delivering flowers for him. And he called me up one day when I think I was still driving a cab when he died. Yeah, I was still driving a cab when he died. And he called me up, and I went over and I picked up the flowers at his flower shop and took them out to Moon to his house. And his wife answered the door, and I sent my condolences and handed her the flowers. And it was kind of sad. It was the day he died. And so
now who was that? Who was that on the Moon?
Foch Fazio at the time.
Oh,
he was living on the Moon.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a pretty sight for me because my grandmother went to school with Foch Fazio, and so she would always tell me stories about how he was in high school and stuff like that. And but I said it that after Jackie Sherrill left, I said Pitt will never be prominent again, and they haven't been. They have
They
not
haven't.
been.
And
They have not been
see,
prominent.
I'm glad you said that, because all the shows I've ever been on, people boo-hoo the curse. They don't even listen. The the biggest curse, I believe, was after winning 3 world championships. Bobby Lane was traded from Detroit
Yeah.
Steelers,
The
and
Detroit,
Bobby
yeah,
Lane says they won't win a championship for 50 years.
and they haven't.
Well, it's 64 years later. It's 62 or 64 years later, and they haven't won a world championship. I see it right away that the Pittsburgh Steelers will never win another Super Bowl when they backstab Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, yeah.
If the
There you go.
Steelers would
Yeah,
have had a veteran wide receiver against Green Bay, they beat Green Bay. Green Bay wasn't that good of a team, but the
oh,
best
they
2
were
receivers
horrible.
were rookies.
They were
Yeah,
horrible, and then they had
yeah.
fifth string defensive backs, and we still couldn't beat them. I was
We
like, what are
still
we
couldn't,
doing here? You know?
because we had inexperienced receivers. If we'd have had a Santonio Holmes, we'd have blew them out. And then Sid Bream. Don't forget, the Pirates was promised Sid Bream, who's a religious man like
Yeah,
you, Ralph.
yeah. There's another
He
one.
wouldn't
Yeah, Sid
lie.
Brave. Yeah.
The Pirates promised that they were going to sign him, re-sign him,
Right.
and then they ended up letting him go. He goes to Atlanta, and hey, the rest is history.
Yep.
And the Sid Bream curse has been on ever since. And the Pirates have not been much of. Matter of fact, they're in the Guinness Book of World Records. What 20 losing seasons in a row? That record will never get broken.
Yeah. Well, they were in the wild card playoffs in 15 and 16, and then after that, the ship went sinking. After that, I told you some stories about Clint Hurdle that I knew. That he was getting disgusted toward the end there, and he wanted out, and he got his way. He's out. He's gone. So I mean, and he's now the assistant general manager in Colorado for the Rockies. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's back working for the Rockies. So but anyway, it's good. It's good he's back working in baseball and everything. So let's talk about high school football this week. We got some great games coming up, including the Westinghouse game on Friday. I'll come down there with you and stand over at the bridge, because I only live right up the hill from the Wyndham Bridge here. I only live up the hill from the Wyndham Bridge. No, I would love to come down there. I just don't like the cold. I can't, deal with the cold because of my health anymore like that, to be outside like that. So, I try not to go out as much as I can, but if I have to go out, it's in and out of my Jeep, and that's about as far as I go, because, this cold is just, it tears me apart with my health and everything. But anyway, I hope Westinghouse does beat them. I think they can. This Central Clarion Wildcats is who they are. What's your thoughts? I think Westinghouse is on a roll. It's nice to see the City League coming back with some sort of prominency. They've been weak for many years. So, what's your thoughts?
Football's always best when Westinghouse is playing very, very well. The numbers was way down, man.
Oh yeah.
The hardest part, Ralph, which a lot of people don't realize, I know you do. The toughest thing is, man, finding, being able to scrimmage. And when you only got 13 or 14 kids on the team, you can't scrimmage. But when Wilkinsburg closed their school and they merged with Westinghouse took off because they got numbers now. They got 40, 45 players now, so you can scrimmage. If somebody gets hurt, you got somebody that can step in, and that makes a big difference. But the disadvantage is the AA ball this year is really tough in the WPIL. Beaver Falls is outstanding. Stowe Rock is outstanding, and Steel Valley's on a whole nother level. So whoever comes out of the WPIL, it's going to be a tough out for anybody. But I'm pulling, and there's only been one City League team back in 1989 to win the state championship. So it's long overdue for another team to win one, man.
Oh yeah,
I like to see Westinghouse do it.
Back in the day when I was in high school, I went to South, which is now an apartment building. But anyhow, I went to South, and back in them days, Brashear was a powerhouse team. Perry with Gus Katniss was always a good team, and Brashear with Ron Wabby. When them guys left, they sort of Bill Callahan, not Callahan, Bill Gallagher.
Yeah,
Bill
Gallagher.
Gallagher, yeah. When he took over, Perry was still good, and at that time, but he took over, and the City League was even a little bit prominent in them days. Now it's weak. There's only 6 schools, and then Oliver merged with Perry. I thought Perry would be better. When I found out Rod Rutherford couldn't even put a team on the field, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you joking?" And then I found out what really happened, because I got a buddy of mine who's friends with the athletic director for the City League. He told me they're letting kids, like, you could go to Perry, but you can play for, what you call it, the prep school up there at Malines. You could play for them and go to Perry.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what the problem is. That's where the problem is lying. And nobody can fill the team that much because of that. And like I could go to it's university prep. That's what it is. You could go to university prep, and then you could play for Obama in Tech. Obama has a team or something. And, you could or it's Obama and prep and it's Tech, and they're all together as one. And they won a city championship a few years back, and then so an older dice but this year when I saw them Westinghouse blowing out Older Dice, I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "Westinghouse is going to go all the way here. They have to, because they're just blowing everybody away, and so the high school games this week, Friday, some great games: Shady Side Academy versus Avonworth, Southside Beaver versus Bishop Canavan. Bishop Canavan's starting to come around. They've been sad for 10 years. Now they're starting to get back into the fold. Central Clarion versus Westinghouse. We just talked about that. And the Shannock is taking on your Steel Valley team that you like on Friday. Thomas Jefferson, Bill Chirpek and his gang, they're taking on Central Valley. McKeesport, you know what, Smokin' Jim, this would be the game to watch. McKeesport versus Aliquippa. Oh my gosh, would this be the game to watch?
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
What a game! What a game!
Oh my, what a game to watch. Rochester Rams, they're taking on Union, Union Township or something. Freeport versus Bell Vernon. That ought to be a good game. Bell Vernon always puts up a good team. Let me see here. Upper St. Clair versus Pine Richland. That's going to be a good game. How about this John Ladon, who was coaching at Penn Hills? He's with Pine Richland. He's got them in the playoffs. The coach that they hired last year to replace Coach K, to replace Gazarowski. He was sick. He had one season. He dropped the ball, and they weren't good. And they brought in John Ladon, and look at this. They're in the playoffs again. Here's another good one. Central Catholic versus North Allegheny.
Wow.
Art Walker's former team. Art Walker's.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be a good game. And you know what? I saw a game on the CW with North Allegheny, and they got some former Steelers coaching there. They got Aaron Smith. They got and a few other guys, a few other former Steelers on that team coaching.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, Art Walker's put together some good assistants, former Steelers and things like that. Other sports to talk about: Penn State 30, Maryland nothing, West Virginia 23, Oklahoma 20. Smokin' Jim, I was talking with Tad Maury earlier tonight, and he said that we were talking about West Virginia. Their athletic director just resigned like yesterday, and they have to look for another athletic director. Supposedly there was some fundraising issues and personnel issues, and Neil Brown is still walking on eggshells down there. He beat Oklahoma. Maybe this might be the game to save his job, because for him to beat Oklahoma 23-20, their athletic director stepped down. We're going to find out what happens with them. The ACC: Clemson 21, Louisville 16, North Carolina 36, Wake Forest 34, and Florida State. My poor Syracuse, Smoking Jim, they imploded. Oh my gosh. Oh, they lost to Florida State 38-3. Mike Norvell.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, he's got that Florida State team back up and moving. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's talk about Pitt. By the way, Pitt football 5-4 now, or I'm sorry, wow, 6-4. They beat Virginia 37-7, and they're now bowl eligible. They have 2 games left in the season: Duke, and they play Miami. Duke at home this week, and they play Miami away. Now, let me ask you this question. I think Pitt could be 6-6 because Duke don't spell Duke out because they got a new coach. This guy has Duke at 7-3 right now. 7-3. Who would ever thought Duke would be at 7-3 with this new coach they have? And they're nobody to play with. Their quarterback's pretty decent, and I'm thinking, there could be an upset, and we always lose to Miami in Miami. We always lose to Miami anyway. So, I mean, last year, Miami had a horrible team last year, and we blew it. And with Kenny Pickett, we blew it. So, I mean, what I'm saying is they could be 6-6 and go to the toilet bowl or some whatever toothbrush bowl or whatever it is, that they come up with these days. You know what I mean? It could even be the sports corner bowl. You know what I mean, or whatever. So. But anyway, what's your thoughts on Pitt football?
Well, I agree with you. Number one, any bowl they go to, they ain't gonna make no money. You know what I mean? Hopefully, they have enough money to take the band with them because them kids deserve it. But it was a disappointing season. Anytime you almost beat Tennessee, you got a good team. It's just a matter of not getting out-coached, and they got out-coached in too many games. I thought they played their best all-around game this past Saturday against Virginia.
Yeah.
And I'm saddened by the tragedy that happened the day afterwards.
Yeah, I want to send my condolences out to those families. That is a shame. I mean, that was a terrible tragedy. And, so I heard Chip Hayner's comments tonight on Pittsburgh Sports Line anyway. But, I mean, but anyhow, I want to send my condolences out to Virginia and what happened there. But anyway, Keaton Slovis, here we go again. Pitt trying to bank their stuff. And I've said this many times, Smokin' Jim, if you get released by USC or Bill Belichick, or you get released by, anybody of prominence, there's something wrong with you, okay? But again, last night you guys had 2 baseball players from Claudio Rosano's baseball team on Steel City Sports World, and one of them said Keaton Slovis wasn't a bad quarterback down at USC. He just didn't want to play for Lincoln Riley this year, so that's why he transferred. But the thing is that once they get here, they don't do anything. So Keaton Slovis actually has an easy offense to work with. Frank Cignetti's offense is power running game. That's mostly his offense. It's not that hard. I just don't get it. They don't have the receiving talent. They got stuck with Addison. Oh, and listen to this. They lost that 4-star quarterback to Notre Dame. That one that he was supposed to sign, and he decommitted yesterday. And this weekend's going to Notre Dame to visit. So Marcus Freeman is recruiting this guy, this 4-star quarterback, DeCille or whatever his name is. And, Pitt's got to go back to the drawing board and recruiting again, because now they lost a 4-star quarterback. And then who do they have? Nick Patty's gone this year. Slovis may not come back. They got that Nate Yarnell, and they got a couple other guys, but that's it. They don't have nothing. Again, they're going to have to go out and look in the transfer portal to get a quarterback, because I don't know what we can. I mean, I saw Nate Yarnell play in the Western Michigan game. I mean, he looked pretty good because the running game carried the game for him. But, I mean, if he doesn't have that running attack, forget it. So, I mean, Pitt's got to figure something out here. Narduzzi's got to start winning some bowl games. He's got to win a couple more championships before I'll be satisfied. But here's the problem that I have. The athletic director, the administration, and the alum and the student body accept this. They accept this mediocrity of a football team. I don't accept it, because I think it's unacceptable. And I think that Pitt should open up the vault like Patrick Gallagher has tried to do and go out and get another coach and find somebody, pay them some money to get some, and pay their assistants and get them in here. That's been the biggest problem. Jerry DePaula told me that's been the biggest problem with Pitt football over the years. They have not been able to pay their assistants. Matt Canada left because he wanted more. He wanted a lot of money. So I mean, and Whipple. I heard Whipple left because he was only getting $500,000 a year or something like that, 500,000.
Wow.
And I heard they had to really ump the ante to get Signetti here. So I mean, you got to pay coaches. If you don't pay them, these assistants, it's no use. And Narduzzi, I'm tired of him. Every time they lose, as I've said before, we have to coach better. Well, I guess you decided at the Virginia game this week and the Syracuse game to actually coach better. I guess you finally figured out how to coach better, and things like that. And that just bothers me, about this. What do you think, Smokin' Jim?
I agree with 100% with everything you said, brother.
So anyway, but the good news is Izzy Abanikanda ran for another big game. He ran all over the place again, put on a clinic, and that's great. And Al Levine said this, that the talking machine. He said that he thought the Pitt's offensive line was going to be suspect this year because they're not a running game kind of an offensive line. They still had these pass blockers from Whipple's offense. So, I mean, and that's been the situation there. Basketball team for men's got blown out this week by Bob Huggins in West Virginia. They're now 1-1. Their next game is against Michigan at the Pete. That's tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I think they're going to get blown out by Michigan. They're number 3 in the country. But one good piece of good news, John Hoogley comes back, and he's our inside game. So he comes back, and he's one of the most experienced players on the team. What's your thoughts this year with Jeff Capel and his team?
It's a disaster. I've talked to a few people that love basketball, and with all the construction going on in Oakland, and it's hard to find parking spaces even in the garage, and and how poorly the team is. They're going to lose just too many games that they're not even going to games this year, man. So that's really a sad state of affairs. How far this program has fallen.
Oh, it's terrible. They haven't been good since Jamie Dixon. And then when they brought in that Kevin Stallings and Dixon left, I thought that was something else. I thought that was a bad hire. It's pretty sad when you have the alum and the student body hating you. And that was Kevin Stallings. I mean, so that's pretty sad. And Capel's not doing any better, I hear. I told you I've heard stories from some good sources that his brother, who's an assistant, is a jerk. And he doesn't the players don't like his brother. And, of course, I don't think he's going to fire his brother, you know what I mean, unless the administration tells him. And I think this is probably going to – if he has another losing season this year and Pitt doesn't fire him, they better do something because they're going to continue to lose fans. People don't want to go – Pitt's not going to go – the student body and the average fan's not going to go and pay to go to a game to watch a team lose every game. And that's not going to happen. You know it and I know it. You know how Pittsburgh fans are with everything. Everything has to be a winner, and stuff like that. All right, let's talk about the NFL. Last night, the Commanders beat the Eagles there, Smokin' Jim, 32-21 last night. And Mark Mancini said it. He said that the Commanders were going to be the team to beat the Eagles. So that happened last night. Packers beat the Falcons 25, or Panthers, I'm sorry, beat the Falcons 25-15. Carolina Panthers on a roll with Steve Wilkes as coach. So the Bucs beat the Seahawks 21-16. Vikings Bills game. I thought that was a great game. Did you see that game on Sunday with the Vikings and the Bills?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a great game. 33-30 was the final there. And then the Lions, they Bears 31-30. Dan Campbell gets a win against the Bears. Wow, that's crazy. The Chiefs. Let me see here. The Chiefs beat the Jaguars 27-17. Giants beat the Texans 24-16. Lovie Smith not doing too good down there. He's only won one game. He's won 7-1 right now. That's where he is. So Titans beat the Broncos. Broncos losing like crazy with their new coach, Nathaniel Hackett, 17-10. Colts 25, Raiders 20 with Jeff Saturday. All right, let's get into this a little bit, Smokin' Jim. What's your thoughts about the Bill Cowher thing?
You tell me. I really didn't know. I really didn't hear what he said. I didn't look it up, but let me know what he said.
Well, I'll tell you what I watched the video because I didn't catch it originally, but I watched the video. And he come on and he said that the Colts ought to be ashamed of themselves because they went ahead and they hired Jeff Saturday instead of giving somebody else a chance. Oh, by the way, Penn's just lost 5-2. Game's over.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But anyhow, Cowher came out and said that the Colts ought to be ashamed of themselves. There's coaches, guys like Steve Wilkes, he brought up from the Carolina Panthers, that are looking for opportunities to be a head coach again. He said there's a lot of guys to put effort into coaching. And he said, I was a player for 9 years in the NFL. He says, I went and I coached special teams. I was a defensive coordinator, and then I had the privilege of being the head coach of the Steelers, my dream job, and I got it. He said, now I'm here doing this job. And he says, but at least I went through the motions before I became a head coach. He said, Jeff Saturday has not done that at all. Jeff Saturday, here's what this is how he put it. He said, Jeff Saturday turned down college jobs. He's turned down assistant jobs in the past with the Colts, and he turned down a high school coaching job at his son's school. And apparently, from what I hear, he was coaching at his son's high school. So, he went and he did that job, and now he's working for the Colts as a consultant, and now he's the head coach. And then he was on, ESPN Network or somewhere as an analyst. And then Bill Cowher said, when I got out of coaching, I said I wasn't coming back, and I'm not. Okay. Now Jeff Saturday leaves the booth, goes right out to the field to become a head coach, and he has no experience, none whatsoever, other than maybe coaching his son's high school team. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, most people are not going to agree with me because I love the hire. I've been saying for years that these guys make so much money now that they, back in the day, these guys, Chuck Noll and all these guys were former players, Bill Cowher, but coaches they didn't make that much money as players, so they started off at the bottom. Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday and those guys ain't gonna start off at the bottom. These guys have been playing football since they was 4 or 5 years old. Nobody knows the game more than a quarterback or offensive lineman. And if you put the right staff together, man, you can be successful. Bill Cowher's just going to be, and Bill Cowher's a friend of mine. He's going to be really mad because, the NFL is a copycat league. And if Jeff Saturday shows some, if he has some success,
right,
other teams are going to do the same thing, man. Because number one, look at all the media attention Indianapolis has gotten. No matter who they would have hired, it wouldn't have got this kind of media attention. Everybody wants to see Saturday. Now that they won a game, man, they're going to be popular. They're going to want to see them on TV and whatnot. Basketball's been doing it for years. Larry Bird was a head coach. Magic Johnson was a head coach.
Right.
Bill Russell, he was a player coach. He was a head coach and a player last year. And I have no problem. Hey, there's no ingredients. There's no magic formula. You can hire an offensive guy. You can hire a defensive guy. You can hire special teams, and they all may lose or they all may win. There's no special formula. You look at all the coaches who won championships, and you can't really put your finger on why they won. Why this guy won it? Yeah. So why not Jeff Saturday? I know for a fact that Deion Sanders can come in the National Football right now and be successful.
Oh yeah, because he was a player.
Know he was a player, and he knows
how to
build. He knows how to build relationships with the players, and he can spot talent.
Right.
He ain't gonna make a mistake. Jeff Saturday ain't gonna make a mistake in putting the wrong person out. He already made a good decision by putting Ryan at quarterback. You know,
Yeah.
Brian was
Oh,
benched for
yeah,
the
yeah.
rest
He
of
was
the year.
benched, right? Yeah, Reich had him benched.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's one good decision right there. So it ain't going to be a cakewalk when they play the Pittsburgh Steelers. I tell you that.
Yeah, I know. But like you were saying last night on Steel City Sports World, you never know. Jeff Saturday might beat the Steelers. You don't know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that could happen. But you're right now. Now you're going to see some teams taking chances on guys like that have never really been a coach, but they were a player. And like you said, it's all about relationships. And Mark
Well,
Mancini said this too. You know.
Look at the heat. Look at the heat that I took on pre-snap, because I said it Sunday morning before any game was
Yeah,
played.
I was watching it.
I said I love the Jeff Saturday
Right.
hour. Everybody laughed at me, man.
Yeah, I know.
There ain't nobody laughing now.
Exactly. I watched it. I watched the pre-snap show. Yeah.
Matter of fact, the quarterback for the Raiders' car is crying. Is he still crying?
Yeah, exactly. See, here's the thing I don't get. As we've said with the Raiders, they have a great quarterback down there. That Carr is a decent quarterback, and Josh McDaniels was supposed to fix things down there, and he's not even doing it. So I mean, and the Raiders are going nowhere. With him, and as you mentioned before, he was an average coach. I mean, he really wasn't that great up in Denver. He didn't do a whole lot there, and I heard that he was fighting with his players and yelling at them and all this other stuff, and really wasn't a really good head coach. I mean, so there we are with that. As far as coaches go, you just never know who could spring up. Speaking of,
can I say one thing before you change the subject?
Go ahead.
Mark Mancini done burnt me twice this year, man. I should have listened to him. Man, I put so much money on the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think I'm hiding now from Macaroni Tony, brother. Oh man, I didn't see that coming, brother. But Mark Mancini predicted it.
He's gonna go Thursday night on a wrestling show. He's gonna be like, "I told you, the Commanders are gonna do it. I told you, the Commanders."
He did say it.
Oh man.
Hey, how did Carolina let Rivera go? How do you have a good coach and you let him get away?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
Talk about Pitt basketball. When they had the coach that went to TCU,
Yeah.
it wasn't satisfied.
Jamie Dixon.
Jamie Dixon had them top 15 every year, top 10 sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes even make the Elite Eight one year.
Yeah.
But they wasn't.
At least he had him. And at least he had him in the NIT and everything. And then we had Scott Barnes as our new athletic director from Utah State. He wasn't good at Utah State, and they brought him here, and he was terrible. That's Scott Barnes. Thanks, Scott Barnes. Yeah. You stuck us with Kevin Stallings, and hired him. Oh, my gosh. Every athletic director, Smokin' Jim, and this is where some of these athletic directors and new general managers and stuff get stung. They don't look at the current situation, or give the coach at least another year or two. They immediately want to hire their own coach. And Steve Peterson got burned with that when he came back the second time with Pitt, when he fired Wannstedt. So, I mean, we weren't prominent, but we were at least going to some reasonable bowl games. We were on TV all the time. We got good recruits. We had NFL players in the NFL when Wannstedt was here because of his name. I mean, he was the salesman for the university. He would go out there and sell this university, and he could recruit like you wouldn't believe. But the problem with him was he had a bad habit of shoving a square peg into a round hole, and that's what his biggest problem was. And he got out-coached by Brian Kelly when he was with Cincinnati. We should have blew Cincinnati out in that game, and we ended up getting beat. And we could have went to the Big East Championship and to a really good bowl. We blew it against Cincinnati, and then we ended up in the Continental Tire Bowl or something like that. So what I'm saying is you know what I mean? It's been too long for Pitt. And I mean, but athletic directors, general managers, they make these mistakes. They come in brand new and they immediately fire the coach. Look what happened to Steve Peterson, which cost him his job after this second time around. And then he fired brought in Susie McConnell-Cero to coach the women's team, and she didn't do anything. And I was real surprised with that because she was good at Duquesne. She coached in the WNBA. She had good teams. She coached in the Olympics. She played in the Olympics. she was, a high school coach at Oakland Catholic all those years. I mean, and then all of a sudden comes to Pitt and does nothing. And I couldn't believe that either. And the women's program hasn't been good there in a while. But this new coach, this Lance White, Jerry DePaula said he has the best recruiting class this year for him. So we'll see what he does. This is his 4th season, and he was supposed to be this big recruiter that they brought from Florida State. He was an assistant down there, and he was supposed to be a great recruiter. So let's see what he does. I mean, but it's all about who you think. But anyway, real quick here, Nebraska's Mark Whipple. Guess what happened to him on Saturday? A football hit him in the head, and knocked him out.
It hit who in the head?
Mark Whipple, the offensive coordinator for Nebraska. Football hit him in the head and knocked him out.
Are you serious?
I kid you not.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, and I told you before, and I'm confirming it's pretty much going to be what's his face? Matt Rule is the number 1 candidate for that job up there in Nebraska. So, yeah, he's the number 1 candidate. And California Bears, guess what they did, Smokin' Jim? They fired their offensive coordinator, and guess who it was? Bill Musgrave, former coach of Florida, fired because of the loss this week. Fired. So he's been fired. Yeah, and some quick college scores: Michigan 31, Nebraska 3, Georgia. They're moving on. Number 1. I think. Who do you think is going to win a national championship in football this year, Smokin' Jim? I think Georgia again.
I think you're right.
Georgia, maybe Michigan. I don't know. We'll see. Jim Harbaugh, he's come close, but he's blew it every time. You know what I mean? We'll see what goes on there. But TCU 17, Texas 10. One of my favorite teams, Cincinnati 27. They finally cracked the top 25. 27, East Carolina 25. USC 55, Colorado 17. USC's climbing up the ladder. How about here? Ohio State 55, Indiana 14. And then LSU squeaks it out against Arkansas. Brian Kelly's been getting lucky lately. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. 13-10. So, so there we are there. Anyway, but Smokin' Jim, once again, thanks for being here tonight. It was a great show as always. And do you have any final thoughts before we go?
Oh, no, I enjoyed it as usual, buddy.
All right, next week we'll be here at our usual time, 8:30 p.m. Tomorrow night, don't forget 7:30, talking wrestling with myself and Smokin' Jim. We have a lot to talk about. Some changes going around in WWE, AEW. Injury case. I have some news tomorrow night, Smokin' Jim, about Kevin Owens. 7:30 live, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch tomorrow night. Also on Thursday, we have a doubleheader here on Thursday. Ralph Williams, one-on-one, 4 o'clock p.m. My guest, Bill Canada, local pro bowler. And also, Bill is the grandfather of Aiden Lombardi, who got killed last year. He was a 3-year-old kid. I went to the funeral. He got killed last year by Tyler Mason. Mason just got sentenced. We're going to talk to him about that as well. Ralph Williams, one-on-one returns this Thursday, 4 p.m. live, YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. Also, don't forget Thursday night, Smokin' Jim and myself once again, and Mark Mancini, Wrestle Talk around the country and around the world. Blog Talk Radio, 347-205-9631. Wrestle Talk and a little bit of sports in there. And we'll talk about a whole bunch of wrestling news and everything on Thursday as well. For Smokin' Jim Frazier, I am Ralph Williams. Everybody have yourself a great night. And please, I say this once and I'll say it again, please be safe. And thank you.